Hi, and welcome to the 10 square meter workshop. Now I know I said I was going to wait a while before finishing off my Machinist toolbox, but I really can't wait. I do like finishing things. So let's crack on and get the lock made and the mirror in the lid. Coming up right now. The lock build started by cutting a 2mm plate to 50 by 60mm and squaring it up in the mill. I could then centre drill it for all the major fixing points. This marks out the area I have in which to build a lock. Wish me luck. Next job was to rivet the key guide into the plate and then cut it to length. The key being a key component, I decided to make that next. I will need it later. So first I turned down some brass 4mm, cut a slot in the end. To form the ward, a small piece of brass was cut and shaped to fit the slot, and the two parts braced together. Cleaned up, it's back in the lathe to drill the guide pin hole. 2.5mm was a bit tight, but 2.6 is a nice smooth fit. Next I'm making the catch, more 2mm plate. The actual catch I made by forming a small peg, then bending it over. Using the key pin as a guide, I drilled a hole through the back plate for the pivot. Another riveting job. The hole in the latch plate, sorry if I'm using the wrong terms here, is filed to a shape that allows the key to move the latch plate across one direction and back the other. That moves the latch in place, but of course it doesn't hold it there. That is one of the jobs of the lever. This part here is hinged here and pulled down by a spring, and the pin on the latch piece itself is here, and as you can see it's in a frame. That has to be lifted by the key by just the correct amount to allow passage through the gate and back to the side. And as you can see, it's locked in both positions. The front or cover piece is once again cut out from 6.5mm brass. And it's held to the back plate with four 3.5mm bolts, countersunk. And the key pin lines up with the hole without any adjustment. Buttoned up, it works with a single lever. And lock, which gives confidence that the mechanism works. Now I shall add a second lever. And here it is with twin levers fitted. The inside of locks are rarely pretty. The mating top catch is another piece of brass, milled square and drilled lengthwise 5mm, same as the latches, which was then channelled out to the back. You will gather from this that I don't have a 5mm ball end mill. Flipped 90 degrees, because otherwise I'd be milling a channel that was being gripped. I slotted it for a flat spring that will operate the catch. With that channel cut, I can drill and tap for the two mounting bolts. With that done, I can start forming the latch. Mounted in the vise and the DRO zeroed, I spent a bit of time making sure I was machining the right end. It's so easy to get the mirror image wrong. Milled out in one axis and in the second. Now I just need to form the hook. Because I'm machining to size and not including a tolerance, there's inevitably some hand fitting to do. But I quite enjoy that, and you end up with a better fit. Slotted and polished, it now looks like this. And mounted on its plate, which has not yet been shaped. The strap or hasp was made in the same way as for the catches, just a bit bigger. Apply flux and a small piece of brazing rod and apply heat. job done. At the same time I brazed the back on the key and cleaned up. A few minutes filing and it's a fit. Shaped and polished, it looks like this. A small piece of leaf spring sits in the recess, trapping the hasp. Here are the three parts involved. There is a flat on the hasp, which is given pressure by the spring. So, does it work? Yep, snap shut. And with that, the lock is complete and ready to install. And so here it is, the chest with the lock mounted. Buying thin mirror glass that's actually glass is harder than you might think. So many of the listings don't tell you how thick. So I found this mirror in a discount shop for the princely sum of £4. More than big enough. Freed from its frame, it turned out to be 2.5mm thick. Ideal. Out with a trusty glass cutter and cut it to width. And then cut off the two sides. The original was made from pressed sheet and held on with nails. I should be milling it from this 1/8 brass I have and hold it on with screws, if it's worth doing. This strip is 19mm wide, so it will slice nicely in two after the machining's been done. So step one is to take a 9mm cut down the middle. And off it goes cutting. With the channel done on one side, I can now split the pairs. After bandsawing apart and milling to width, I have 4 parts now to join. Now's the time to cut the miters while there's still enough meat on them to grip. Set up with a 45° angle block and machined until it meets the full width. With the corners done, I can now cut out the rebate for the glass. Mounted vertically in the vise, the side is trimmed off and 0.9mm above the vise. The result is a part that looks like this. With all 4 done and the corner pieces made, it's time to braze the lot together. After brazing and quenching, it looks typically unappealing. But the braze has flown into all the places it should do and none of the places it shouldn't. And crucially, it fits over the mirror, so it just needs cleaning up. To shape the lobes, I made a small template and then filed around this to make them all even and equal. With that done and the holes drilled, it's ready for the buffing wheel. Some time spent on the buffing wheel and with a small buff gives an acceptable result. Not quite a mirror finish, except in the middle of course, but good enough. And so at last I can fit it. Does this mean it's now finished? Well, not quite. Makers of these tool cabinets usually used to put their name on them. And so I use my CNC machine to do the same. And so now it is finished. So there it is, built and ready to use. Was it a worthwhile project? Well, not financially of course. Even at minimum rates it would be cheaper to buy one, even at the rather high prices they are. But that's not the point. I learned a great deal making this and enjoyed it. And it can be an heirloom to pass on to my grandson. So don't put off a large project. Yes, they're a lot of work, but they're a lot of reward as well. That's all for this time. Bye for now.